Hello all of you beautiful people, Jules here for WhatCulture.com. And who doesn't love a good boss battle, am I right? I mean, they're true tests of skill and strength, and why has he gone down in one hit just because I tickled his feet? Oh right, okay, clearly this is one of those weird bosses that look really intimidating and strong, but go down in very bizarre ways. So let's take a look at them today. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 intimidating video game bosses with the strangest weak spots. Number 8, Nightmare, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening /DX. In all of its releases, Link's Awakening refused to hold the player's hand when it came to exposing the weak points of the dungeon bosses. And back before there was blatant advice from the likes of Navi, there were cryptic hints from the Koholint Island's resident owl that didn't always make a great deal of sense. However, even a dodgy bit of rhetoric from an owl statue would have been greatly appreciated before challenging the game's final boss, the Nightmare. A physical manifestation of the Windfisher's anguish, Nightmare chops and changes between a number of forms, including Beast Ganon, Moldrum, and Aghanim, but it's never really clear how to take the monster down. The L2 Koholint's sword can damage Nightmare, as can Magic Powder, but it makes for a long, drawn-out battle that becomes really quite challenging if you take a few hits from the transforming terror. Thankfully, though, as with most Zelda boss fights, there's actually a quick and easy way to dispatch him, and it's in the form of your trusty boomerang. The totally optional slog of a trade sequence that eventually leads to the boomerang itself proves to be the greatest trump card, as one hit from this trusty Aussie hunting weapon results in Nightmare's immediate demise. A weird one, in truth, as the boomerang generally just stuns all enemies, but who's really complaining here? Oh yeah, actually I know who's complaining, people who tried this on the Switch version, where it didn't work at all. Haha, ooh, sorry about that one. Number 7, Dragon types, Pokemon. Okay, so Dragon-type Pokemon aren't strictly video game bosses, but in nearly every series entry, the toughest member of the respective Elite Four seems to rely quite heavily on them to stop you from becoming the Pokemon League champion, so I'm going to count it here. And if it wasn't weird enough that Dragon would be a typing all of its own, it's also the type with the least outright weaknesses in the game. This goes a long way to explaining why it takes so long to train them from their base to their final evolution. Hard work pays off seems to be the message that the Pokemon Company are trying to convey here. Although their weaknesses are few, they're still unbelievably weird, as dragons succumb only to ice, steel, and fairy type moves. Now steel is easy to understand, like swords and stuff like that from the adventures of old, but ice and fairy? The humble Togepi is 4 times effective against the mighty Dragonite, and either of the Eon duo could be felled by a mere spilling of a gin and tonic. What, really? That's definitely weird, right? Number 6, Deimos, The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker. Deimos is something of a regurgitation of a boss battle that you experience in Jabu Jabu's belly, but so very much more irritating and even more intimidating because a few chomps from this sentient plant will have you staring at a game over screen in no time. And you know what? It's only the second boss in the entire game, so you'll have maybe 4 or 5 heart containers tops. The battle itself is one of those in the Zelda franchise where you could use the dungeon item to expose the boss's weak spot and then hack the living hell out of it with your sword until it dies. Simple, right? However, hack a little too long and that's where you get chomped, right? So there must be an easier way. Well, you'd be correct because this boss is basically an evil plant. You can think of him as a weed. So to take down this behemoth in a single move requires some actual weed killer, aka some Deku forest water. It really is that simple. Grab a bottle of forest water from the pool surrounding the Great Deku Tree, bolt to this boss chamber, boomerang it to the ground, and then pour water on it. Job done. Weird that you'd have to water a plant to kill it, but it kind of makes sense-ish. Number 5, Bowser, Super Mario Bros. Surely everyone recognizes Bowser, right? Is a description of the fire-breathing King of the Koopas really necessary? Well, even if it wasn't, you're gonna get one anyway. So Bowser's role in the Mario franchise is chief and primary antagonist to the plucky ex-plumber, and there have been a variety of different boss battle formats over the course of the series' 35 years. Some feature mechanized versions of the tyrannical Koopa, and some even focus in on his weirdly irritating progeny Bowser Jr., but the most common battle format sees Mario launching Bowser off of a stage into molten lava. But just pause for a second and think about that. Bowser, the fire-breathing Koopa, is basically a dragon crossed with a dinosaur cosplaying as an anarchic turtle and is still vulnerable to lava. A big, scaly, fire-breathing demon is vulnerable to lava. Where on earth is the logic and how do we find it? Furthermore, if this behemoth knows that he's vulnerable to lava, then why do all of his lairs have the stuff just swirling around by the gallon? You're just asking for trouble, really. Number 4, Shao Kahn, Mortal Kombat 2. Every iteration of Mortal Kombat's big bad has been pretty damn intimidating, and for the most part is the most challenging opponent that you will face in the entire game. Happily, we no longer have to feed precious currency into an arcade machine for the right to face off against Shao Kahn, but there are plenty of gamers those who perhaps lament investing so much into Mortal Kombat 2. No matter the platform that the game was played on, Shao Kahn is easily the cause of many a broken controller, with his fierce fighting style undoing even the most focused and disciplined combo masters. And since his arrival in MK2, he's been an enduring part of the franchise that will simply not stay down. Unless that is, of course, that you ignore all of your training, every single combo that you've ever mastered, and just stick to one move, the uppercut. In such an iconic beat-em-up, you would expect the biggest, baddest of them all to require careful planning and studious work to pick apart his fists of fury, but it couldn't be farther from the truth. Repeatedly jumping, ducking, and then firing in a load of uppercuts just takes Shao Kahn down in seconds. It's cheap and weirdly effective, so yeah, it counts. Number 3, King K. Rool, Donkey Kong 64. So Donkey Kong 64 is widely hailed as the series' peak, and sees the elder of the Kong species enlist the help of several friends and family members to take down the evil King K. Rool, who plans to destroy Donkey Kong Island with his Blast-O-Matic. And this game is utter joy from start to finish, but it does include one of the weirdest boss weaknesses in all of video game history, courtesy of King K. Rool himself. The final boss battles are all quite frankly bizarre, but after you've beaten K. Rool around a little, dropped some lights on his head, and watched him slip on a banana peel, obviously, you're then tasked with, tickling the evil king's feet to defeat him. Yeah, you heard that right, tickling a giant Kremling's feet. Nintendo is weird. Fact. Number 2, Killer Croc, Batman Arkham Asylum. So Arkham Asylum remains one of the best video games that anyone could wish to play, but it does make some of Batman's fiercest enemies something of a laughingstock, none more so than Killer Croc. Although it remains a decent boss fight, his weakness is painfully obvious from the off, and is an example of the developers somewhat belittling one of the most physically imposing rogues in Batman's famous gallery. Instead of going mano-a-mano with the reptilian beast, the player takes him down by, pinging a batarang onto his comedically large shock collar, which is just outright bizarre. Here we have a nigh unstoppable crocodile/human hybrid halted by the same technology that stops a yappy dog from keeping you up at night. Is the implication meant to be that Croc is comparable to a naughty Shih Tzu? I mean, surely not, Rocksteady. Not only is this incredibly convenient, as even this Arkham Batman would get pasted by this version of Killer Croc, but it's really bloody weird that Croc would even find himself collared up in such a way without a massive amount of explanation. And number 1, Metal Man, Mega Man 2. Whenever anyone makes anything, there's a lengthy research and development period that often includes a working prototype to demonstrate what the final product will be capable of, and this is true of the story of Metal Man, Dr. Wily's very first creation that is first introduced in Mega Man 2. Naturally, the first versions of these so-called robot masters have a few issues, and one of them is being totally villainous and hell-bent on destroying the game's protagonist, Mega Man, which is technically his considerably nicer and improved younger brother. Mega Man 2's boss fights were a bit repetitive and not unlike the Zelda dungeons pattern of trawling through the area, obtain a dungeon item, and then use said dungeon item to beat another boss. But Metal Man's boss fight is an absolute joke, as his key weakness is also metal. To be more specific, it's Metal Man's first encounter with Mega Man that gives the player the Metal Blade, and the second round that exposes the weirdest boss weakness of all, that Metal Man is weak to exactly what he's made from, and that is just daft. And there we go, my friends. Those were 8 intimidating video game bosses with the strangest weak spots. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ0, or Live and Let's Dice tweet, which is just loud tweet, for all of my board games and streaming information. But before I go, I just want to say I hope that you are doing well, my friend. I hope that you are treating yourself with love and respect, because you goddamn well deserve it. I know I bang on about this, but it is true, my friend, and do not let anyone or anything else tell you otherwise, okay? Go out there and absolutely smash your life goals today. I believe in you, and it's time that you did the same. As always, I've been Jules, you have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.